Hello everyone, welcome to our second Scoobtober Retrospective. This time we are going to be reviewing Scooby Doo 2002, or also known Scooby Doo the movie. So if you're a fan of this movie, I will direct you to our Neil Fanning interview, which we did about 3 months ago now, so that was absolutely incredible. We learned lots of information in that, so I'll leave that linked in the description down below, along with a playlist of all of our other 2002 interviews, including Nicholas Hope, who played Old Man Smithers, and many, many more. So, and in addition to that, there's another one being announced at the end of this retrospective. So,
You just scared me. It doesn't feel like 3 months since that interview.
I know it's weird, isn't it?
I just pulled the most ridiculous way, but it's because it doesn't seem like that long.
No, well, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Definitely a surreal experience. And also, we recently met Neil Fanning, so all the vlog content is out on the channel. So let's go through this retrospective to celebrate Scoobtober because, in my opinion, this is one of the ones that leans a little bit more towards the teenage/adult audience than you'd expect from Scooby. And I think what exemplifies that is the start, where we see the Lunar Ghost in the Wowo toy factory. So I'll go to you, Millie. What did you think about this sequence? I guess from the intro all the way until I'll get you for this, that scene.
It's really playful. I think it sets the tone well. I always like it when they start in the middle of a mystery. I don't know why, but that's just a format that always kind of rests well with me. I don't know, just it's really fun. I think it sets the theme quite well. From like Shaggy not realizing the monster was behind him to Velma falling off that platform. Yeah, just a really light-hearted feel.
Yeah, I definitely do think it's like the cold open, isn't it? It's like the king of all the cold opens.
But I also think, sorry to interrupt you,
No, it's good.
because I just realized that you said we're going to right up to the end of I'll Get You for this.
I'll get you for this.
I think it all I think it also kind of sets the budget well. I just think having the feature of Pamela Anderson at the start was kind of like okay, this is our cinematic release. It was making a statement quite early that this was a budget that they'd not seen before. And I think the cast also exemplifies that. Like Sarah Michelle Gellar, Matthew Lillard, those two names at the time were huge. Like, from Scream, from Buffy. So yeah, just them two being there, it's kind of like, okay, we're showing you this is the budget from the start.
I like that a lot. And Sophie, what did you think about the cold open sequence?
Yeah, I definitely love the opening. Definitely like one of my favorite parts to the movie. It pays such respect to like classic Scooby Doo, like all the stereotypical like stuff like Daphne getting kidnapped. Fred with his traps. I just love Fred with his traps. Like that's such a good like character arc for him. But yeah, like you said, the cast just works really well for the movie, and it just sets the vibe for the movie, which is incredible.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely does get you in the mood for it because the thing is, it almost tells you exactly what you're getting just from the get-go. You've got that classic formula, but then you've got some stuff like you've got, oh, the ghost keeps grabbing, whatever. Then you got Fred checking himself out in the mirror. So it's almost like saying, here's the traditional formula, we're gonna give it to you, but here's this for like, older audiences, and here's this in joke. So it sets you up perfectly. And actually, this is going to surprise some people because I only just thought about this when we were doing the reaction video. And it's what in the heck is the Lunar Ghost even grabbing? Because I'd always thought bum, right? But if Daphne is under the arm and he's like flying like that, nothing's getting grabbed. So I don't know what that was. I don't know how logistically the Lunar Ghost is maneuvering about, but I guess he's probably got some skills. And the set piece is cool. The only thing that I will say is, for all it was, quite high budget, like you were saying with Pamela Anderson, I think it would have been cool to have something of a brighter set piece for the Wowo Toy Factory. But at the same time, the Where Are You series was quite dark in terms of color palettes and stuff, so I think it makes sense. And just the design of the Lunar Ghost in general used to scare me. I think one of the better villains. I know we got it in Mystery Incorporated a little bit, but I'd love to see someone do an episode where that Lunar Ghost design comes back because it's one of the best parts of it.
I will just
So,
add
oh
in,
yeah,
they should have kept the cartoon intro as well, like like the
yes,
deleted part. I think it just works really well.
I don't know why they didn't. They did like that commentary where Raja was like, "Oh, we did it for time and stuff," but I mean, it's a short movie anyway, right? Like, it's not a terribly long film, especially not by today's standards. So, I do feel like they could have kept it.
Maybe they also wanted to make a bit of a statement about it being a more adult audience, and they were worried that might kind of blur that a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I get that, especially at the time, because what was adult animation back then? Maybe we had The Simpsons, but possibly, at least from like mainstream stuff, that's all I can think of. Whereas nowadays, you've got Disenchantment, you've got Rick and Morty. I don't know if Futurama's adult. I've never seen it, but
I've seen
it kind of
it.
edges towards that. So now we've got so many like adult animations here. Maybe you're right. Psychologically, it would have made that differentiation. But then you'd think when the studio was like, okay, we're gonna cut out the cleavage, we're gonna cut out the weed stuff. Let's add in that cartoon at the start to remind people it's
Yes.
fun.
I mean, I guess you have to make a decision, don't you? Because I think the cartoon would have been fun and would have all loved to see it. But I think also if you think about how scary the laugh is at the start, and like you said, how dark the image is, like to see the outside of the factory at night, I'd like to have seen how they were going to do that smoothly. But still, I'd have loved to have seen it. Like any part of that movie we've not seen, I want to see, be that animated, non-animated, whatever it is. I just want to see it all.
Yeah, and I would have felt a bit like more cool just rewatching it because you've got people like Miguel in those main titles. That would have been fun to see. But yeah, that would have been absolutely incredible. Now, going towards that, I guess we'll call it a breakup scene because that's quite prominent. I know a lot of people have an issue when there's conflict within the gang and whatnot, but I mean, that whole build up to the breakup and then eventually where Shaggy and Scooby would end up. What are everyone's thoughts about that? And I can start with Sophie.
I mean, yeah, I'm one of them people. I hate when the gang fall out. So I always like watch it like kind of like far away, like a cushion in my face, like trying to get over it. But I think how they handled it went really well. Definitely added to the story, which therefore it was overall like a positive like outlook on it.
Yeah, and what about you, Millie?
I don't know. I always kind of think, like you say, it's never nice to see conflict. But I think if you look at so many different stories, like a huge part of telling a story is conflict resolution normally. So I guess it's just a set piece, it's a plot line, and they incorporated it for a reason. And I think it worked well here. I certainly wouldn't want to see it in every episode, but I don't mind how they did it here. I think in the music of this part, something that you always mention that makes it really sad, but also the friends don't quit bit, like it's just it's a line that sticks with everybody.
Yeah.
Like no one's gonna forget that line that's seen this movie. I don't know why, but it's certainly one of the things that I remember the most, but also for them to make it so impactful and then the lines repeated later on in the movie, isn't it?
Yeah, when like I think it's just before Shaggy goes headfirst down into the tunnel that leads to that Mondavarius layer, and that's just amazing. I guess the only issue I have with it isn't what it is at the time, but it's how it ends up because I always find it a bit odd that yeah, friends don't quit, Shaggy and Scooby stay together, but then the driving force of that line is again that friends don't quit, so they're gonna stay together. But I don't feel like it was treading much new because they never broke up in the first place. I think it would have been cool to have that line come back to bring everyone together, which I guess it does, right? Because when Velma realizes that Scooby was gonna be the sacrifice. But I don't know. I don't know. I just think there could have been more of a actual reunion between the people that explicitly fell out versus the people that stayed together the whole time anyway. But I like the scene. It
I
makes me
guess
tear
it
up.
uses a symbolism of the mystery machine as the gang, because Shaggy and Scooby never quit. They stay with the mystery machine. It's almost like that's the core feature. I don't know why I infer that from it.
It makes you think that Shaggy owns the mystery machine as well, isn't it? Because like obviously it's Fred's baby. You'd think Fred owns it, but then in some other versions
It's
it's
Daphne's.
Daphne's. But yeah, I guess it's Shaggy's in this version. Or it could be Scooby's, I guess. Like in this world, maybe dogs can own stuff.
Or it's just Mystery Inks and the other three walked away.
Yeah, it'd be like, oh, that'd be like the coolest company car ever. I would absolutely love that. So now we are passing the duchy on Tangalooma Island, which is absolutely incredible. Now, obviously, we get that section where Mr. Rio Nagara shows up to scam Shaggy and Scooby. You know, they think they're getting all you can eat, they think they're getting free airfare, but instead they get sent to Spooky Island, which, you know, we all know how that goes out. So I guess we can start from meeting Rio all the way until, oh, what do we do this time? I guess don't eat the kitty, because then the next section we can speak Spooky Island stuff.
Okay, so we're going all
Yeah.
throughout the airport and everything.
All throughout the airport.
All throughout
Let's
the-
let's do it. Let's do it. Let's
Okay.
do it. Millie, you can kick us off.
So first of all, where they're making the eggplant burger in the mystery machine. Oh my gosh, that made me want to be in the mystery machine so badly. Like, I love how didn't they do like an Airbnb that is the
Yes.
mystery machine? I love how they did that. That would be an absolute dream after that scene. I like how it kind of I like how there's a clear plot line of bringing them all back together. You can see that there's kind of a force at work that wants them all to be there. Obviously, the grandma scene is completely iconic, and yeah, I just like how they introduce I just think it runs so smoothly. Like, sometimes you can watch an episode of Scooby Doo and you're like, oh, they did that because they wanted to achieve that. And obviously the stuff here where it's like they did it because they wanted to bring everyone back together, but it just seemed a lot more seamless. Like, not just oh, you're here, wow, but like I don't know, just they made the most of having some very good actors.
Yeah, that's definitely true. That's definitely true.
I realized that wasn't a very good answer at all. That went around in a complete circle and didn't provide any certainty or like any like definitive feelings. But like, yeah, I just think that it was a lot more story based than just a this happens, then this happens. It's a lot smoother than an episode.
Yeah, I guess it is just a testament to the casting as well, because they all are just so natural. There's never an awkward moment with them. There's just been so many instances where people have been perfectly cast, and those people are just seen as iconic. Like in the superhero realm, you've got Robert Downey Jr., Tony Stark, and Hugh Jackman Wolverine. But I think you can say the same for all of the main cast in this movie. I guess again, like Freddie Prinze Jr. kind of makes his own version of Fred as opposed to fitting into that 1969 version of Fred. But even then, I think that I couldn't really imagine many other people doing what he did in this movie in particular. So I think they all showed up to bring their A game, and they absolutely did, which is weird. A part of me kind of feels like if they knew that it was going to be for family friendly audiences, and I think they've alluded to as much, maybe they wouldn't have taken it as seriously. I don't know.
Also, in the bit that you've mentioned is where Mary Jane's character is introduced. And from the word go, I loved her. I don't know why I liked her so much, but I always really liked her character.
Yeah, the mad thing about that is it shows kind of the childhood innocence. Because back when I first saw it, I had no idea that it was this big marijuana joke. I was like,
oh yeah, like when Shaggy's like, oh, that's my favorite name.
Yeah, I was like,
yeah,
oh yeah, Shaggy like Spider-Man or something. Like, oh, that makes sense. Like, that's literally like, yeah. I didn't know that there was some other like.
At least you had some reasoning, like Spider-Man. Like, to me, it's just like, oh, he's trying to flirt with her. That's sweet.
Oh, that is kind of cute though. But yeah, sweet Mary Jane is what the man's on about. But
I
I mean,
suppose that kind of shows like the borderline between like a child's movie and adult based. Like both age brackets can watch it for like their pleasure.
Don't you wish aeroplanes were that fun as well? Like, there is a great there is some great energy on that plane. I have never been on an aeroplane and found it fun. Like, it's normally like either so awkwardly quiet or like the screaming children, or
every
like
plane I went on a Daphne on, I think I'd be quite good. I'd be trying to do that Riz thing. But as well, like the pets, like because there's a cat on there. I've never heard of an airline where you can just have the cat in the main cabin.
no, like normally there's an entire like quarantine process.
And obviously, and actually, I think dogs can go on the plane because Scrappy got there somehow. And I think they alluded to it kind of where Shaggy says they don't allow big dogs on this plane, maybe implying that they do allow small dogs. So I think it's just cool. I actually don't think I'd like that. For all I am a dog lover through and through, I don't know how much I'd like planes if that you can just have dogs about. I don't know
I'm
about that.
petrified of animals. I'd hate it.
Actually.
I'm petrified of like any animal.
Well, I think animals can be cool in moderation. You know what I mean? It's a bit like some other stuff. So yeah, I guess Sophie, do you have any more thoughts on that whole plane sequence and the build up to that?
Definitely a fun scene of like the mystery machine. Um, I thought the pacing was really good. You know, when the gang did meet back up together, they had quite interesting like backstories, like where they've been for the past 2 years. But instead of like dragging it on, they kind of like got to it really quickly, and it kind of just fit really well. And then obviously, you know, Scooby dressed as grandma, iconic. And then
sorry.
I mean, yeah, meeting Mary Jane, and yeah, it's just really exciting. Like, really set you up for the movie then.
I have to agree with something that Sophie said there quite strongly. Like, normally, I'm like, why did they remove stuff from the movie? I want to see it. But they had clips of everyone's backstory, and I'm so happy they didn't include them because I do think it would have dragged that on a little bit longer than we needed to. Like you said, you heard that everybody had had their own moment, but we're now focused back on the gang. And I think that for all they are really cool bonus features to just kind of see, oh, wow, that's what they did separately. I don't think it had a place in the movie because conflict, it's like, yeah, we can kind of see that and use it as a plot point, but let's not focus on them as individuals too much. Like, unless it's how they interact together and them having their personalities together, I don't see that that was maybe what we needed. I think they removed the right bits there.
Yeah, not just time as well, but I think in terms of audience perception, it was a good move. Like when we hear Daphne saying, I've transformed my body into a dangerous weapon, because we haven't seen any proof of that. Last we knew the Lunar Ghost was kind of doing some madness, and now she's just saying this. Like we're kind of we feel sorry for her, but we're kind of half on board with Fred laughing because it's like what
Yeah.
a ridiculous notion to like, oh yeah, you've had this time away and you've become Jackie Chan or something.
But also, how choppy would that scene have been? Like, we're in the airport. Now we're at a book signing. We're in the airport. Now Daphne's doing Kung Fu. We're back in the
It would have been
airport.
very 2000s though.
It
Like,
would have
it could
been
be.
very all over the place. I don't think they could. I don't see a way that could have been executed smoothly.
No, no, and I guess for all like I'd like to see it because this wasn't included. Like there was a lot of stuff like when I interviewed Adele K. Thomas that her scene was cut out. Again, it would have been cool to see, but I like how because realistically, it's Spooky Island, right? The whole set piece is Spooky Island, and I think the sooner we can get there, the better the whole thing is. So I think they made some good choices. They made some good choices. But yeah, so let's talk about Spooky Island. And I don't know what section I want to go up to because I just want to go on like a free for all about like Spooky Island. But I suppose from landing at Spooky Island until what do we say? There's just so many sequences. I mean, we can just talk about the main plot of the movie now. Maybe up until something a little bit later on. So the possession, there's no such thing as monster. So yeah, or middle section point.
Yeah, okay. No, I get what you mean. So I think it's all fair to say that Spooky Island was a great plot point, like a great location. I think something about being on an island makes you feel a bit more remote as well, like they needed to deal with this themselves. It wasn't just as simple as they were in a city and the police were around the corner. Like, it makes the threat seem a bit more real in that it was a bit more isolated, which, I think is always, like I say, a good plot point. Also, it's something that forces the gang back together because if you're on an island, you can't exactly avoid each other. It gives you that idea of a smaller space and that sort of thing. Ultimately, I really liked all of it. I mean, at this point as well, when they just arrive on the islands, when we meet Rowan Atkinson, and that character couldn't have been done any better. Absolutely loved him. I think he's a fantastic actor. So I was really happy about that. Anything else before that point? I guess kind of we're building up to, because all this happens before, is you still see them kind of be their own character a little bit. So you just see how relaxed Shaggy and Scooby are. They're having a great time. They're with Mary Jane. You see that develop a little bit more. Velma, you see her being very kind of involved and like wanting to solve the mystery straight away, looking for clues. But I like how she does that in for all she's got. I really like how they develop that bit where, and I know I said this when we watched it through together, but like the way that she's like here, here, and here, if that was done in a Kate McCucci voice, you'd be cringing a little bit. But the way she did it, it felt natural. It felt like Velma. That's her character. She knows everything. And then just as well, the kind of what a smart little one, it kind of takes away from that. It balances it out nicely. I don't know, everything was done really well. I think it's a great kind of character development point, seeing the different bits of the island. Yeah, I think it was all really well done.
Yeah, I'm so excited as well because I think again, like with the reaction, I know we're going to talk about the reaction a little bit, which is a shame because we did watch the entire movie the night before the Comic-Con, and because I had some issues with like syncing the audio and everything, all that is now like a 7-minute video. So there's probably a lot of stuff that we're going to mention that isn't really in there. Maybe I'll try and do like a non-visual, just purely audio commentary thing, maybe, but. Yeah, like we were saying at the time, because it was early 2000s, all of it really was done practically. When you look at the tiki monsters, the designs of like the hotel, it's amazing. The only real crime is that we can't visit it as it was today. But it's perfect. It's S tier. I love it. So yeah, Sophie, what was your first impressions of Spooky Island and all of those things?
I mean, the location is incredible. I mean, definitely the perfect setting. And I mean, we haven't really had anything like that in Scooby Doo before, and to that extent, like that on a grand scale like that. I would admit Rowan Atkinson, perfect choice for this movie. He brings Mondeveros to life. He is so funny. I love him. I like how the gang aren't yet friends, but then when they get to the castle, like they're not immediately friends, but they kind of like tease each other, and it's kind of like a nice like transition. I will just point out all of the Daphne and Miguel scenes are like my favourites. They are so funny. Definitely cry laughing when I watch them. But yeah, I like the transition from like them being not friends again to them becoming friends, and then the whole mystery is really interesting as well.
Yeah, see, I can't believe that I've had like my section kind of. I didn't even speak about that Miguel scene because that was just so much fun. And actually, Miguel was the person that I was the most nervous to interview for the longest time because I'd seen some of the things. I was really scared, but that was amazing, and just the whole chicken thing in general. I'd like to think that that whole entire thing was only done with one take, and that's all they needed because it was just so fluid how they could bounce off each other.
It was also kind of funny. Someone's like pulling Daphne up on a fashion a little bit as well. Like it's a fall color. It's the middle of May. I've always found that funny. Like, because I think if there's anything you could do to insult that character, it's got to be to do with how she dresses, right?
I'm
Like,
laughing now. I can't help it. It's just such a great scene.
See, the weird thing is though, is purple a fall color?
traditionally, maybe.
I'm inclined to think not. And also, how hot is Australia? Because if that's the weather in the middle of May, I'm moving to Australia.
Yeah, their winter's our summer. Like July, August is their
Oh, that
storm
being
season.
said, though, that's probably how the spiders go so big.
Yeah.
So maybe not. Maybe not. We will have to.
Their summer is our winter. So like when my brother went over there for Christmas, they were like having barbecues on the beaches and going out on boats and stuff for Christmas there.
I don't think I'd like that. I've experienced something like that before, but I always prefer a slightly. I want the 25th to be cold. Any other day, the coldness can.
Don't upset Sophie right now, JayBee. She is not a winter fan.
Oh no!
It's the last good day today, and it's going to go bad again.
Oh no, I've seen like the forecast for next week is meant to be fantastic.
Yeah,
like,
Halloween's meant to be
day.
okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We'll all be moving to Australia. I mean, maybe that's endgame. Like we can retire after interview 150, but I'd like to think that we'll have at least the core four on a trip to Tangalooma Island one day, and that'll be the movie. Because all good British series need to end with a movie that goes abroad. So we'll probably do that. Miguel, what a guy.
Mm.
What a guy. I could watch an in-character podcast with Sarah Michelle Gellar, Daphne, and Miguel Voodoo Maestro all day. They're just iconic. So the Spooky Island Castle, we'll kind of touch upon the design because this kind of leads on to it. Now, speaking to Bill Bowes, the whole design is probably obvious at this point, but was all based on the 1969 series with, hints of blue in the background, like with the color palettes then. In terms of visuals, how well does everyone think that the Spooky Island Castle is meant to emulate the designs from that 1969 series? And I'll start with Miller.
I think just kind of on that castle thing as a whole, I think firstly, design-wise, absolutely stunning. And also kind of in terms of the design and what they were going to do, it's quite creative. Like the wall of meat, for example, that was so creative and so well done. But also those tropes that we all absolutely love, like the bookcase, and once you move a book, it's a secret passage and that sort of thing. Like to me, that was my dream growing up. And even to this day, like if I had a big house and was designing it myself, I would want one of those bookcases that just lift up when you press a certain button on move a certain book. Like that is my dream. And a lot of that I think probably stems from Scooby. So just seeing stuff like that was obviously really cool. But also I really like the kind of stark contrast they had between almost like old authentic castle to the second that lifts up, you almost get this modern clean edges, a white color, kind of plain colors, sort of feel like, okay, remember there's a bigger picture behind here. This is just a ride, and there is kind of stuff and people behind it a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like symbolism almost. Like obviously it's not like that deep, but just you've got wacky exterior, but a sinister plot as the interior, and that works out quite well. The only thing I get is more on that scene that I think, and maybe this would have been a bit too dark. Maybe it was even a deleted scene. I might ask, but I wish that we saw that training facility in action more. Like we see that this is how it should happen, this is how it shouldn't happen. I kind of wanted to see that process. Like once the monster is has taken over a bunch of people, like that training process thing would have been so freaky to see play out.
I'm almost thinking like some Doctor Who style brainwashing though.
Yeah, like this is how you smile.
And
This
then
is
you
how
just
you
see an
make
army
friends.
of people like moving their feet at the same time and stuff. Like it's kind of creepy when you imagine how that would look. But something else they do in this scene that I think kind of in this part of the movie that kind of epitomizes that it is for older audiences a little bit is like there's always consequences in Scooby Doo, right? But there's one part where Daphne's clinging on to a ride for dear life, saying, "I'm gonna die."
Yeah,
That's a little bit dark.
like die. You never hear die in kids movies nowadays, which you could argue is right. But the last time actually, and I'm surprised they did this, it was actually the Mario movie. Some of the stuff that Star was coming out with. But one thing that I really want, because we were talking about those bookshelves, I really want one of those little pervert picture things, like where there's like a hidden corridor and you can open up a little pee-pee hole and it's like the eyes of a picture. I don't know why, but wait, what? Like a pee-pee hole.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other thing entirely. But you want to be just like that. Even here, like, I would cut into Sarah Michelle Gellar's eyes in our big poster if one day I could go into a corridor and just look out. Oh, imagine that. You Sarah Michelle Gellar. I love that.
Yeah, there's just so many elements, like we said, like secret passages, the picture frames with the eyes missing, that are so almost like core Scooby that you've got to appreciate them. Like there is certain features and tropes that like having the Scooby snacks on the plane and stuff like that. Like they're ticking the boxes. This is definitely Scooby.
But yeah, I know I've prattled on for quite a while about the castle, but Sophie, what are your thoughts on not only the castle's design, but I suppose at this point, everything that goes on within that castle?
Like you said, the castle's like a tale of two halves. You've got like the more cartoony feel that reflects like 1969, and then you got like the modern dayness behind it all. I think the 1969 tribute was spot on. Like all like the characters, they were all like cartoony yet quite creepy looking. Definitely like the atmosphere was really eerie. Like you said, the added element of like danger, like when Fred like went shooting through the window when the axe like pushed him back, Daphne with like the knives out, there's like that added element of danger, which really kind of amped it all up. And I mean, I like danger, so it's quite exciting.
Yeah, it's so good actually, because I think about Scooby, some of the DTVs, and I know it's difficult to compare big budget with DTV, and obviously nowadays and maybe even back then you can achieve what live action could achieve with animation now, maybe even more with certain things. But I think when you get sequences, big set pieces in Scooby, sometimes I just associate a lot of that with, wasting time. Like, we need 10 more minutes for the runtime of this movie, so let's just have a wacky chase scene. But with this, I think it all adds to that sense of danger. So you get big set pieces like what do you call it, that swinging axe of doom and all that, but it all serves that purpose of either getting the gang from A to B or really showing how dangerous this whole place is. So I just absolutely love that they did that. And there's some other things that go on there as well. So I love the Spooky Island Castle a lot. Now, what happens then? I mean, I don't think there's much to talk about the farting scene.
No, I think
It just kind of
really,
happens.
yeah, no, I'd agree. That kind of happens. I think really the next kind of bit, like you say, is because you kind of said you want to go up to the no such thing as monsters, but I think kind of on from there, perhaps until we kind of see Velma and Fred leave.
Even though I'm afraid to leave.
Do you know what I mean? When they're carried away.
Oh gosh. Or after the
Because,
possession.
yeah, because I think,
That's a bit scary.
yeah, I
That's the
mean,
Scoobtober of it all.
it is. And I think the demons haven't aged terribly. I personally don't think. I enjoyed that. I think again, I think there's something about it being live action that makes it seem a higher threat. And I don't know if that's just because I wasn't allowed to watch animation growing up, but for me, like seeing Fred fly through the air and crash through the window, seeing seeing Daphne, Shaggy, Scooby all on that luggage cart flying out of a glass window. Like, if you saw that in animation, I feel like it doesn't quite hit the same. Like,
Well, it's a bit easier to self-insert, isn't it? Like, I can't relate to being an animated person on a raft, like going down somewhere that I can't really recognize. Whereas when I'm watching this, like I can relate to being a geezer that stood in a hotel lobby, if nothing else. But also, you're used to seeing wacky things. Oh, maybe you weren't actually. So I don't know, because when I was looking at, say, if was animated, I'm used to seeing the Looney Tunes where a staple of that is dropping an anvil on someone, or Tom and Jerry, where there's like pianos that get chucked on Tom every other episode. So it's like, what threat can I get from that when I'm used to like anvils being thrown about? Whereas in live action, you don't really get that, really. So I don't know. Maybe there's something in that. But about the demons, I think this is a hot take because I think a lot of people criticize them. I think the demons look amazing when they're just the demons. I think where it really starts to age is with the scene where Velma was pulling on the horns and like trying to pull the mask off. That looks so eerie and uncanny that I don't think that that's aged well at all. But when it's just the demons stood and just interacting with its own little area, I think it looks really good. But yeah, the second it starts getting interacted with, it's kind of nightmare feel.
see, I do like how Velma tries to unmask them. It's so true to character. But also, I like how they couldn't be unmasked. Like, it's a, it's a bit of a controversial take with Scooby stuff, but I like when it's just not an unmasking. Like the ghost of Sarah Ravencroft, like the zombies on Zombie Island.
It's crazy.
I like that stuff.
I'll shout out
I really do.
a video. Our friend Scoobytopia published a whole video about it. Touched a lot upon how modern day creators at Scooby are very anti supernatural, and it actually breaks it down in a way that I'd never thought of. And a lot of it was about like Jim Krieg and stuff, and that's someone that we've interviewed that was a bit of a controversial one. And just looking back at that, I was like, oh yeah, that kind of makes a lot of sense. a lot of it. I see why, but I'm not against supernatural in Scooby at all. Yeah. Sophie, what are your thoughts?
Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
I was gonna say, I think it's our era that doesn't.
Hmm.
Like that Zombie Island Witches Ghost era. I think we're the ones that are like, no,
You know
they did it
what?
right.
There might be something in there. And then I guess that makes me feel a bit more compassionate for someone like Jim Krieg. Because when we interviewed John Semper, this wasn't 2002 related, but there was always that thing like which version of X, Y, and Z is the best. And more often than not, it's the one you grew up with. So if you've got Jim Krieg growing up on the Scooby Doo show where all of it was unmasking, maybe you'd be a bit more protective of that versus, say, what were we? So Zombie Island was 1998,
We
which
were
was
born
the
in
same year that both of
1998.
us were born. And so we were right at that era where the supernatural was very expected, very normal. So now maybe from our perspective, if they went back to that, it'd be, oh, okay, it's a bit of a throwback. So I guess so. I guess so. But at the same time, Jim Krieg also did Scooby Natural. So I don't know how you know, I'd like a bit of consistency, but
You can't just put it on him though. Like it's got to have been a Warner Brothers directive, surely. If
I'm
we need
inclined
to
to think so,
disprove
yeah.
Zombie Island.
I mean, look at everything else Warner Brothers gets involved
I'd
in. More
prefer not
often
to.
than not, it's a bit of a sugar show. But yeah, Sophie, what are your thoughts on the demons and the sequence, and I guess up until that spooky possession, which I think is a bit terrifying.
I think the demons are a perfect character design, really unique to the Scooby Doo franchise. Like if you see like say Demon, that'll be the first one that I'll think about. Like you say, it's tough because it's a 2002 movie. Obviously it's iconic. It's like, some things are bad, some things are good, but overall it's really like positive. Like you said, like Velma pulling off the mask, it was like, oh no. But it's something about that's quite charming, I think. Definitely a fan of the supernatural element. Like it's perfect for like the eeriness of it. Like it's kind of like a horror, which I love. But yeah, I'm definitely a fan of the demons. Like I used to not be a big fan of them, but now after watching the movie so many times, I'm like, they're perfect for the movie.
Oh, and they've got their own action figure as well,
They do.
which is nuts. Like even way after retirement, all the 2002 stuff is definitely gonna stick around. I think we're both in agreement with that now.
Yeah.
So I just I hope beyond hope that my grandchildren, great grandchildren will keep them all safe and they won't flog them, but who knows? You know what I mean? No point worrying about that. So, what happens after that possession? Because I've pretty much got the whole movie etched in my brain. So, what I'm seeing now is you get the demons dragging them into that big mouth, and this is where we get the heads popping out of the vases, which is a really funny scene.
The calling of the Coast Guards that their friends were kidnapped.
Yeah, which up until we did the interview series,
Yeah, that
that
seemed a strange
scene,
scene.
I think ultimately, if they were going to get rid of everything in terms of the Pentagon, the other Coast Guards, and everything, I feel like that scene maybe should have got deleted as well. But then I guess people would be saying, oh, they're here, why don't they call for help?
They did. And it also kind of gives you that exposure and realization to people leave this island after this has happened to them. So it serves its purpose, I think.
I think they could have at least made it a funny early 2000s cameo. Like if they're gonna get rid of the Coast Guard storyline, have like Frank Welker as like a phone call attendant that's busy doing something else, and he's like, "What?" Like you know what I mean? I just have him being kind of bumbling, but ultimately,
Almost like
you know,
that kind of Home Alone thing of it not been taken seriously.
yeah. Oh, I like that. I like that.
Like the mum calls the police back home and it's like,
Donut,
yeah, and
like,
it's like, oh, there's a call on this line for you. No, I'll pass it back to you, and like just no one taking it seriously.
you could have had Welker Kasem doing something like that.
That would have been fun.
And maybe it would have made it less scary, would have taken away from it a bit. But I'd rather a funny scene that I can now look back on it and go, oh, it was those two versus, yeah, unless you'd seen like an interview. I guess Screenrun actually wrote about it, so it's kind of good. Yeah, you kind of don't know what's going on. But you know what? Yeah, that was our first Screenrun feature, wasn't it?
Mhm.
finding out more about that scene. So yeah, I'm glad it's in. I'll take it all back.
Okay, so then they wake up on the beach the next morning. Daphne tries to take charge of like, we need to split up, we need to do this. And that's when we start to see exactly what happened to Fred and Velma. Like, they're there, but they're different.
I mean, this scene is just so cool. I can't get over it because you think it's all business as usual. Like, yeah, Red Bull, and they're just going through the resort and everyone's partying. But when you look at all of them just kind of looking at the gang in the background, like, what other Scooby can you get something like that? Like, it's genuinely kind of freaky, but beyond being freaky, it's so wacky and 2000s that we've got kind of outcast music blurring. They've got that zombie one trying to rizz up Daphne. Like, it's all just so wacky. I just love it. I love the vibe.
Yeah. And I kind of like that two of the gang were possessed. Again, it makes the stakes higher. Like, you often get this, the gang can't be seen in a bad light. Let's, do all we can to protect and preserve our, franchise sort of thing.
And some of the stuff Fred will say.
Yeah, but like for Fred to literally say in a very menacing way, get the dog.
Get the dog.
Like, that was like, oh my gosh, sort of moment. Like, no way. Like, Fred's causing this to happen to Scooby. Like, he's fully behind it. I like the stakes being higher like that. I like it when they do stuff like that. And it certainly was great for dramatic effect because I thought that was quite dramatic. And I just like everything about this bit, to be honest.
Yeah. I love it.
Also, for is it called roof rollers that they like jump out of the door on and stuff, like breaking through the doors, and yeah, that was all really fun.
And the fact that like the whole instrumental after they do that is like, I don't know. I know that this is a bit of a cult classic, but ultimately online, everyone agrees that the Rotten Tomatoes score is way under, but I don't think anyone knows, like, anyone thinks that this is like movie of the century, movie of the decade, and they're probably right. But to me, this is like the definitive movie. Like, if I could watch only one movie for the rest of my life, it would definitely be this. Is that weird?
No, everyone's got their movie.
What's yours?
My Scooby movie is Witch's Ghost.
I like that. But just there's something about this whole the wackiness and irreverence about this. So I suppose, Sophie, from Daphne, Shaggy, Scooby, and Mary Jane waking up to the start of that chase scene, what are your thoughts on that?
There's definitely like a balance of like being really eerie because everyone's like possessed with like the green glowing eyes, and also goofy. I go back to the part where Fred says get the dog in a really menacing tone to Shaggy, but then he looks at Scooby and he's like, get the dog as well, sort of thing, like that kind of like comedy sort of thing. And it's like 2 and 2, and it balances. It's exactly what Fred would say anyway. Like, he's not cool enough to be cool. But yeah, I think the whole scene really balances each other out. But yeah, I think that was quite perfect then.
Oh, I suppose this is interesting because we've gone over some of the deleted scenes, and I think around this point is when we would have got that Velma in the, what was it, a shower room or just a lavatory? I don't know what it was, some type of washing facility. What are we thinking, that was a good thing or bad thing that was cut, either for time or
What was the scene?
Oh gosh, it's that one where
Like the shower room, like the tiles,
where she's like
Daphne and
dancing
Velma.
about and like Insane in the Membrane was meant to be playing, and
I think they deleted some of the right things. So again, I think it's perhaps right deleting that because it would take away from the plot a little bit. There's certain things that I wish were kept in. I would like to have seen the more adult side of this movie. I think that would have been interesting. But that just seems like it was something that was going to confuse and take away from the plot.
one thing I don't understand, and it isn't even the plot hole of what happened to Daphne in terms of why was she there, what led to that, but it was, in the possession, but it was more, why could we get Zarkos just grabbing Daphne and taking the Damon Writers, but yet Daphne's got crazy skills later on? Because I think I like that they deleted her training montage, because you don't know until the very end and that it's a surprise. But it's like, if she could do all that at the end, then how come like 10, 20 minutes earlier, she's just like, oh no, the
Probably
thing
self-belief,
matters.
I'm assuming is what they're getting at. Like, she tells herself she's going to do it at the end, so she does.
Hmm.
Because she's like, not this time, and then does it. So,
I like to think because that's after they all come together as the gang, maybe that pumps her up a bit.
yeah.
But yeah, I just don't know because she is defeated easily.
Mm. But continuing on from that little like chase scene that was starting, obviously there's that kind of scene on the roof rollers, the horrifically scary bit where Mary Jane's face contorts. That was,
That still scares me.
yeah, that was petrifying. We then get onto the bit where Shaggy doesn't believe Scooby, and this is like where Matthew Lillard's kind of acting ranking triples, because everyone's like, oh my gosh, he did that without anything like to inspire him, the footing of where his like movement needed to go to like fit Scooby round it and everything. Honestly, it was incredible, even to this day, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I think when you talk about conflict with the gang, there's certain things that maybe don't sit 100% well with me. That if I wasn't blinded by nostalgia, you could say it's a little bit nuts that they have swings at each other and stuff, and especially because I don't think Shaggy has ever been shown to traditionally. Well, he simps basically. He's kind of simping in the movie, even over that friendship with Scooby. But ultimately, I think it has a good resolution, especially when he doesn't listen to Mary Jane when she's like, "Oh no, don't go there," or "No, Shaggy," or whatever that was. It was kind of funny. But yeah, I think it's great, and I'm really glad that through this movie and Monsters Unleashed, that led to Matthew Lillard taking over the voice. I think that's just amazing. It was iconic.
I agree, but like you saying like you can't believe it got to the point where they're taking swings at each other and stuff. I think it was different enough that you could,
Yeah,
because
it definitely
normally
set
we
it
see
up.
the gang a bit younger. I think it's fair to say that you could see like Shaggy at an older age here, where it was kind of like there was more of a focus on relationships and stuff like that. And also for Scooby to have been voiced by Neil Fanning, it wasn't that typical friendly jokey Scooby. Like you could see him almost as an older portrayal of Scooby as well, that like has better understanding of life and stuff beyond
See,
Scooby
that's
snacks,
part of
if
the
you get
reason
me.
why I'm really glad that it was Neil Fanning, because I just think a lot of this movie, for where they take it and just how it will look, I think it would feel wrong, say, if it was Scott Innes as originally intended, because I think he does a great job as Scooby in Zombie Island, which is Ghost. Everything that he did, I think he did a really, really good job. But it definitely suited that more clean cut animated Scooby. Whereas in here, I just think
It was
it would feel so wrong. Whereas this is a gravelly
Yeah,
Scooby.
I was about to say that it was like the voice is
Like you can
deeper.
imagine a
It's an
real
older
dog tongue
Scooby.
and a real dog voice box, if you can even visualize that making that sound more than, clean cut, digital almost sounding Scooby. And it does make it different to the point where, yeah, it's kind of far removed. I don't think I'd like it the other way. But yeah, Sophie, what are your thoughts?
It goes back to the pace of the movie. Like a lot of it's quite, I mean, like we said, it's quite a short movie. Um, and then you have like the chase scene, which is like really high octane, like really fast paced, and then it kind of builds up to the Shaggy and Scooby part, and that's when they slow down and make quite a poignant part in the movie. But I think definitely how the pacing works, it really makes that quite a big part. And like obviously we talk about it and you say it to anybody and they'll know what you mean. They build up to that like part of the movie. And like you said, like Matthew Lillard like acting to nothing, like I don't know how he did it.
Yeah, definitely amazing. So,
I guess this is where the plot gets revealed. So Shaggy jumps down the hole, and then is it the vat of souls he finds, and obviously releases Velma, Daphne, and Fred.
one thing that annoys me about this, and it's after the fact, is that we got a set piece and figures for the Wall of Meat, but I don't think they ever released a Vat of Souls playset or something. I think that would have been cool.
I guess that was kind of one of the parts that was maybe a bit frowned upon a little bit by people,
Wow.
because it's like, I don't know, like souls been removed and people got weird about certain parts of this movie. But I think it was interesting, kind of the fallout from this. Obviously, they get the Damon writers back here, but also you then see the souls going into the wrong people, which obviously is just really fun to see, like people making impressions of each other and stuff like that. And I know, again, I don't know if this made it into the kind of watch through video that we did, but like I think something quite funny about this is just when Fred and Daphne were impersonating each other, because it's kind of like these two were in a relationship. Like this was literally Freddie Prinze doing an impression of his then fiance, and likewise she was doing an impersonation of him. Like, to me, that's as funny as if me and JayBee were impersonating each other, trying to like highlight each other's worst traits. It's just funny.
Yeah, I don't know what I'd do with that. But very, yeah, that had a lot of deleted scenes that I don't think we're ever gonna see. But yeah, I get what you're saying. It was the whole sequence was funny, and I'm surprised that that thing like, hey, I can look at myself naked. I'm surprised that wasn't cut out because there wasn't any innuendo with that. Like, it
It was
was.
just outright
Whereas
said.
a lot of the other things, like talk about toasted with the smoke. If you're a kid and you don't know, again, like they're making toast things, I guess.
They didn't edit out the bit where they were selling pots outside.
And Mary Jane, if you don't know, I guess he just likes the name. But that was just like, I suppose a kid. No, I don't know, but yeah, I never understood it when I was small. I suppose at the time I was a bit like, huh, why would he want to do that? Or oh, okay, that I guess that he's not wrong. He could technically do that, but then he could do that anyway. I didn't know it was like, um, but yeah, I don't know. There's some stuff that they could have deleted, but at the end of the day, I just think it's why it sticks out to me so much. The fact that they actually got away with this, it, I don't know. I don't know.
It was the movie that it was meant to be, I think. I think it all worked out well.
Yeah. I think if it was the Gosnell cut on release, I don't think it would have done terribly well. And I don't think it would have spawned a sequel necessarily. I think it still would have made the same money, if not a little bit more. But I think in terms of reception and how it would have been viewed in hindsight and rewatchability, I don't know if it would have hit the same. It would have just been adult parody of this as opposed to, oh my gosh, they really did that. And I watched that as a kid.
And it was quite a pivotal time for Scooby. Like, if this was messed up, what's new could have been messed up. Do you know what I mean? There was so much around this time. Ultimately, I think they released the cut that we needed and we got the right one, but it would be great to see,
There's no
what could have
reason. Now
been.
that Velma's been released, there's no reason to not dump the Gosnell cut on Max or something. Like, just it's there. It's probably going to be Warner Brothers' least expensive ventures. Just release it, sell it on iTunes for like £5.
Sorry. So where do we go from here? So they swap souls back. They've
So
got the
Miguel,
writers. They hear the explosion, which is
yeah.
Miguel.
Which there's such I was freaking out. They would never film this. Nothing about this was filmed, but it was in the on-set script. We almost got a Miguel action sequence where a load of the possessed people were trying to break down the door of the Voodoo Maestro's hut, and the Anuki beast comes alive and starts shredding up like the possessed people. If that had made it in, that would have been so cool because I kind of wonder, like, in canon, obviously Miguel isn't involved. You see him like at the end going, hey. But I kind of wonder, like, why was Miguel never targeted? Like, if he lives on the island, someone would have thought to possess him at some point. I think it's absolutely bizarre that in the canon of the movie, he's just there. So I think it would have been cool to make sense of, oh, he's not just like insane. All of the stuff he's doing is genuinely helping him. I think that would have been a cool, fun little twist. But yeah, and that Arnuki beast, I would have loved to have seen that in action. But that's like the one scene that I'd wish that they'd filmed more than anything. But yeah, so we got Miguel. He used the wrong ingredient. And then what? Then we get the realization that Scooby's the sacrifice.
Yeah, and isn't there like a cut to? Isn't there like a thing where like the gang also work out like there's a person that wanted to bring us here and all that stuff as well?
Yeah.
And I obviously like the plot being revealed. It's interesting. Obviously, the threat of Scooby being the sacrifice, but then that just gives them the perfect reason to knit the gang back together, set up all the traps, hang the skull from the ceiling. And by the way, that skull is probably one of the key things I'd want to take away from that set. I think we can pretty much all probably agree that's like one of our top 3 that we take.
And the music montage doesn't have that. Okay, all right. Like, oh, I can't. Like, if I was not like in the confines of a recording that's going to be published, like, I could talk about this movie for 10 hours just by myself, plus 10 hours plus. That's episode 1. I could do like the interview series, one video every week for 150 weeks, 1 hour long, just talking about the movie. I genuinely could.
I know you could. But as well, I think some of the funniest parts at this point as well is like the standard Fred's trap going wrong. So when him and Velma end up dancing,
Oh, was that
the electric slide bit.
yeah.
Oh, he's brilliant.
I think
It was
that's maybe
so
Fred's
funny.
best moment throughout both movies. I think they kind of sideline him a bit, where I don't think he gets any memorable scenes in the second one, if I'm not mistaken.
Isn't there a scene where like he rides a bike to defeat
Oh
something?
yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
dead or alive.
Yeah. But that's the closest thing he gets in that one. And then obviously when is it Zarkos? Is it Zarkos?
What, the wrestler?
Yeah. Is that what they're called? Yeah, so when they kind of walk out while Daphne's trying to set the trap at the top.
That is the best. Like he just like she's just there, and she's like, is she trying to pull that lever? And he just comes with like "Senorita," and then the music kicks in, and the fact that it's a rock version of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? So there's all that going on, and then there's
And then that keeps contrasting with everything downstairs with turning into what is it, Scrappy something?
Scrappy Rex.
That's it.
Now,
Like
obviously,
Shaggy first for like knocking out the guy to like take his costume.
Yeah.
which is funny. Oh, and that leads on to my favorite scene. Well, the most emotional scene for me, which is when Shaggy and Scooby are talking, about escaping when he's the sacrifice. And to me, that is more Matthew. That's the scene that impresses me the most of Matthew Lillard. Like, because I think it's easier to be angry at nothing. Because at the end of the day, like, you stub your toe on a chair. I think all of us have kicked that chair at some. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I'm just insane. Like, you brush against the wall, you kick the wall. Like, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just a bit wacky. But it's easier to be angry at nothing than to be emotional and to build rapport with nothing. Like, that's going to be so difficult. And the fact that he had that heart-to-heart scene without anyone there, you got Neil Fanning to the side and maybe one of those glow balls like dangling in front of his face. But like, I mean, there's romantic stories, romantic movies that come out nowadays that have less chemistry than those two in that scene.
I don't think when he auditioned for Scooby Doo or was selected for Scooby Doo or however this happened, he expected it to be like, oh yeah, this is where I get proper deep acting skills from, because we've seen him in horror movies up until this point where he's like some crazy psychopath killer.
Yeah.
But like we've never seen him sit and have an emotional scene. Like, I'm gonna say this did wonders for his acting range.
Like, they all showed up to a live action Scooby Doo movie, like they were pulling up to one of those Oscar bait movies about something. Like, they all showed up. They showed up, and I can't believe that they did, because it
But like
would have been so easy to not.
Matthew Lillard creating like such an emotional scene with like nobody there to create chemistry with, and like we all felt it. Like, that's talent.
Yes. And I guess this next question is a controversial one and could evoke different answers from us all. This might be what we disagree on the most.
Yeah.
What do we think to Scrappy being the villain?
I'll go last.
Sophie can go first.
I'm a total hypocrite. I love this movie. It's my favorite live action movie. I mean, I just love it. However, I am a die-hard Scrappy fan. I love him to pieces. You know, he is the villain. I kind of take it on as it's like a different canon, and like this isn't like kind of like extracted from like the Scooby franchise, only to like this some degree. If anything, whatever I take away from it is at least he made the movie. Like they could have not added him in, and like Puppy Scrappy is quite cute. But yeah, I always say I'm a total hypocrite because I absolutely adore this movie. And I'm a die-hard Scrappy fan, and the contradiction's too big. But I do just let it slide at this point.
Okay. See, I'm on a different part of the spectrum, not the opposite end, somewhere in the middle. In that, I think, given the era of Scooby I grew up in, I'm completely indifferent towards Scrappy. They just weren't a huge part of it. I don't really remember ever seeing them. I just knew of them. So I was kind of like, yeah, it just works out. It is what it is. That's his reason. It makes sense. That's fine. So, and I'd rather, like you say, they acknowledge Scrappy than try and do something ridiculous, like Return to Zombie Island, where it's like, what's a Scrappy? That's just infuriating.
Yeah, I
Agreed.
mean, there's two ways to look at this, right? And I think if you look at it with the Warner Brothers agenda, it's a bit annoying because like if this came out today, like this plot twist, I would be a little bit annoyed because I think they've acknowledged that some of the community don't like Scrappy, but it's like they're trying to score easy points nowadays. Like with the Scrappy statue, oh, we said we'd never speak of him in Mystery Incorporated. It's like, well, okay, are you expecting us all to start laughing and cheering? Like, and again, with
Sorry.
What's a Scrappy, are you expecting us to praise you because Scrappy was a divisive character, but then you've left him out of something that he was a big part of? It's like, well,
I feel like I'm interrupting a
know.
lot, so I'm sorry, but also at this point, it's been so long since they last used Scrappy. If they did it now, who'd actually know who he was? You'd have to entirely reintroduce the character to the modern age, I guess, a bit.
I think so, and I think that's why it would be a good time to bring him back. You know, it's a hot take, but I would be up for that. But the thing is, I didn't love Scrappy. I liked Scrappy when I first saw the 2002 movie, and while I was watching it, like I'd have marathon nights where I would go from liking the dynamic with Scrappy on my, Ghoul School VHS, and then I'd put on 2002, and it was to me, it wasn't just, oh, Warner Brothers hates Scrappy, so this is a joke. Or because I wasn't on the internet then, it wasn't, yeah, I know Scrappy is a hated character by some, that's why he's the villain. It was, oh my God, they made a member of the gang the villain. That's such a plot twist. So I wasn't thinking of it as this is Scrappy. It was they made a member of the gang a villain. A bit like in Where's My Mummy? So I think I had it so separated at that point that in hindsight, even now, I respect it more for having a plot twist of a character that I knew in my head versus, oh, it was Spooky Island, it was the receptionist or it was the butler of Spooky Island or something like. So I think I liked it, but
Yeah, I think it's good to
I
have
can
a
see why it's
recognizable
divisive.
character, because how many times have we watched an episode, they've unmasked it at the end, and we've gone, who?
The only thing I
Who
don't
was
like, and it's not even just it's not Scrappy as the villain at all. It's just the framing of the gang. Because obviously Scrappy, yeah, weeing on Daphne, probably not the thing to do. Being a bit annoying with his voice and stuff,
You don't just
probably
kick
not.
your
But
family
the
member
fact
out.
that he was kicked out on the street, I think you could almost make the argument that that makes this version of Mystery Inc. a lot less likable. And because I'm a dog lover and I've always grown up around dogs, like, yeah, if anything, you feel more sorry for Scrappy towards the end of it than not if you're a Scrappy lover. So it's not the plot twist. I don't mind him being the villain. It's just the way that it portrays this version of the gang that's maybe I don't like too much.
No, I think that's all fair. And we're reaching the end of the movie. Obviously, all the souls are released back into the world. They find their bodies. We have that scene at the end where Fred passes the credit all over to Velma that they think she should have had to begin with. And it's basically like just celebrating on Spooky Island, which who wouldn't love that? So, JayBee, I'm gonna go to you first because I guess you've never made a secret of your verdict of this movie. Overall thoughts and smash or pass?
It was perfect. Everything about it was perfect, down to the most minute detail. This is the biggest smash I'll probably ever give in my entire life. This is the smashiest smash in Smash Town. This is the smashiest smash that was ever smashed. Yeah, I smashed this one.
Okay.
Big smash. Big,
Okay.
big smash. This is the smashiest. This is the smashiest smash in Smash Town. You know what I mean? Like this is a smash. It's a straight up smash. You get me?
Mm-hmm.
Millie, would you smash or pass Scooby Doo 2002?
See, I see and respect where you're coming from, and it is definitely a smash.
Where are my sunglasses?
I wouldn't say it's like the smashiest smash that you've ever done, and I've seen the tier list that you did that's not fully out yet, and believe me, me and you would have a very strong argument over some of the things you've put on there because I strongly disagree with a lot of
We'll
it.
do one together, right? We'll do one
But
together.
it's still a smash. It was
we'll do a
amazing.
core 4 tier list.
It was a perfect iteration of the time of Scooby, of how to do Scooby on a bigger budget. It showed how to do live action right. And obviously, like mentioning something at the opposite end of the spectrum here, it's everything Daphne and Velma didn't do right. It's true to the core stuff. It's true to core Scooby. So many Scooby tropes in there we absolutely love and associate with the franchise, and that made us feel love for this just out of recognition, but also it did so much on its own kind of standalone stuff, from casting to location to scripting, that made us love this movie of its own accord as well. So honestly, I'd say it was pretty much ticking every box. It was an exceptional movie. I think we've all watched this well over 10 times growing up. Like, it's certainly something that I'd have watched, I'd say, every 6 months growing up or something like that. It was definitely got to be one of the most revisited.
I watched it every day. I still do. I always will.
Okay, so I guess we'd already given our verdicts on this one before anyway. So the opinion we really want to get into here, I think it's fair to say, is Sophie's. So Sophie, for you, is this movie a smash or pass?
Definitely a smash. I agree with everything that you guys said. Out of all the live actions, it's definitely my favourite. I don't think you could have done like a better version of it. Like, it's perfect to me. Like, I like the adult like tones to it, as well as like keeping true to the classic. I know we said it's like 2002, it's of its time, but it is a cult classic. Like, it just works. I mean, all the 80s like movies like Back to the Future, you know, it's from the 80s, but still it's timeless. Everybody loves this movie, and you know, we'll go back and watch it over and over again. Like, I know this movie is definitely one that people have seen more than any of the other Scooby Doo movies put together. So for that reason, it just proves how good a movie it is.
Yeah, it's definitely standing the test of time.
I definitely prefer this a lot more to Monsters Unleashed. I might have to do like a movie fight with NerdSync about that one day. I think that'd be a funny video.
I think there's arguments for both. I think this movie is iconic. I think maybe Monsters Unleashed has higher highs, like the scene in the Fogo, stuff like that. But this one's more consistently on that high, whereas I think Monsters Unleashed, you're kind of in it, then you're a bit out of it, then you're in it, then you're kind of a bit out of it.
I've got a hot take about Monsters Unleashed that I won't share today, but I've shared it in the past and I won't. Like, it is amazing, but yeah. If I did a tier list, I think I'd get
your tier list is messed up, JayBee.
If I did my own tier list, if I did my own personal tier list, yeah, it'd be a bit weird. But I guess that is the retrospective, and now we've got an announcement. So the interview that is going to be announced, and it's going to be premiering in about, oh, I want to say 24 hours, but it's going to be like 22 hours realistically, is with Kevin Kucheva, who worked on both the 2002 and 2004 live action movies. Now, obviously, the last 2002 movie we did was with Neil Fanning, so tough act to follow, but I don't think it can be forgotten that so far, our most viewed live action interview was with Peter Crosman, and that took off because there was unseen footage, rare clips, never before seen concept art. And I think it's fair to say that this interview has that in abundance. So if you want never before seen stuff, this is the interview for you. So yeah, I mean, pretty much what you'd expect from our 2002 interviews at this point. S-tier stuff, and it's a long one as well. So buckle up for a wild ride.
Say something, and then I don't know if you want me to say it.
What do you want?
You can edit it out if I can't say it, right?
Yeah, obviously.
Just like this is somebody who's acknowledged they have seen that cut
Seen
of
it.
Scooby Doo the movie.
They spoke about it. So
Yeah, like they were there in that test screening. They've seen it all as it was meant to be.
yeah. So
And they even
wild
may have
stuff.
parts of that still on their computer. Who
Wild
knows?
stuff. Wild stuff. So that'll be linked in the description down below. Probably be the end card of this. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the second retrospective. Now I can say at this point, if everything goes right, our next retrospective, which will be released this time next week, will be Goblin King.
So JayBee, does that mean a Goblin King interview?
It does. And our fourth and final one that will tie in directly to an interview is Happy Halloween.
Ooh.
So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. This was another Scoobtober retrospective. Sophie, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Instagram at Scooby for life.
That is incredible. And of course, as always, all of our links are going to be in our link tree in the description. If you do want to see more content from us, then please like, comment, and subscribe.
JayBee Milly.